Hi and welcome to the Skeptic Fox channel. Today I'm having a conversation with a feminist, so if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, so I'm just going to go by M. Yes, I am a feminist, skeptical nonetheless, but still I don't think that's in contradiction with my ideals, let's say.
Well, we shall see, shall we? Right, so basically the structure of this video is I'm going to be asking Emily a few questions. Then I'm going to be sharing a video and asking for her thoughts on it. And then I believe you've got a question for me at the end. Do you still have that? Or
something of one.
Something, that's alright, Anne. Right, so first question for you is, why do you identify as a feminist?
Because feminism has had a huge personal impact on me. And I don't expect to then push my personal reasons onto other people and be like, you should be a feminist because this is why I am. They're integrally related to me.
On the defensive already.
No, God, I'm just saying that's not what feminism should be. We should not do this thing where we say, these are reasons why you should be a feminist because I am. Like I say, a lot of it is to do with personal reasons.
Right, so can you give some examples of these personal reasons?
My personal reasons are that it's been what's kind of inspired me in terms of what I want to do. After 3 years of doing a creative writing degree in where we only did prose and poetry, I realised, fuck, I want to do script. So I've made the more refined decision now of where I want to go in terms of like writing television. And I think one of the most influential pieces of like feminist writing has been Joss Whedon in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I can call it that because he is a self-professed feminist.
I never said otherwise, did I?
No.
Again, on the defensive.
No! Jesus Christ, you are such an asshole!
Oh, that's true. But
I wasn't even suggesting anything of that ilk. Good God!
We're going to replay that again and prove my point.
What do you mean prove your point? What point?
Right, so that's a fair enough comment then. So you're a feminist because of Buffy. That's the conclusion.
It's more than that. There is more than that. It's just that you keep interrupting my thoughts with your asshole comments, and all of my ideas fall out of my head. I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but I'm far, far better on paper.
That's the tactic, right? So, second question: do you still think feminism is doing good in the current year, 2016?
I mean, like I say, in terms of the feminism that I have been exposed to in the entirety of, I guess, my education, that I would say yes. Because I'm not sure if you know what there are theoretical models of history and literature. And my personal opinion on which theoretical model is the most viable is the synecdoche model, which means that history affects literature as much as literature affects history. So, for example, like we know that like books and any kind of literature are very much a product of their time, and that's very, very evident. However, like there are things like Oliver Twist. When Charles Dickens published that, workhouses started closing down. It actually started a progressive movement in helping orphaned children.
That's actually quite debatable. There was a lot of pressure to get these workhouses closed down before the book was actually published.
But I do think it's a contributing factor, hugely. I don't think that should be undermined. But the point is to not argue about what my belief on theoretical models are. That just happens to be the one I believe in. So I think as long as academic feminism can stay positive and stay good, and I'm not going to say there are not negatives, but as long as there remain positives, then I think they can then in turn impact society in a positive way.
Yes, but the way it's affecting society right now isn't in a positive way. It's
I wouldn't say that's the responsibility of academic feminism. I think the problem that we have is people taking an idea and running with it. I think
people are getting these ideas from academic. These ideas don't originate from Tumblr. That's where these ideas go to.
Yes, I'm very, very aware of that. But like I say, they take one sort of nitpicky part, and like I say, they run with it. If you look into like some of my essays, for Christ's sake, if people took ideas from my essays and ran with them and believed in all that shit, I would be not apply any kind of other criticism. then that would be terrible.
Yeah,
Like, the point of, like, doing well, like, in an essay is to pick things apart and show both sides. This is the problem with feminism we're facing at the moment, is that people they're taking putting their feminist goggles on and leaving their analytical hat at home.
Yes, but this is coming from the academic side of it, though. I mean, this is why you get people being shut down at conferences, being banned from conferences, because they don't want a debate. They want people to just nod in agreement. They teach these principles like the wage gap, like toxic masculinity, like patriarchy.
Gender studies.
In gender studies, yes, but that's like basically feminism 101. As if these are, without even having a debate over whether these principles actually exist and can actually apply in this day and age.
See, that's kind of what you have to do in terms of, like, actually writing, like, a fucking essay. Let's say I was a student of
yes, but in
English
gender studies, though.
Yeah,
in,
I'm
like,
not. Yeah,
in
I know.
In the course where where you get most of the fucking feminists come from, and most of the academics.
No, you get
from.
quite a lot of feminists in my course. Like, all the feminists that I know are people that I met on my course, and they are all rational-minded people as well. They're smart people, I guess, because maybe it's in terms of how you structure a literature essay. Who knows? It's one of those things where if modern feminism, the feminism that you see on internet trends, the feminism you see being influenced in politics, if that were an essay, it would get a third. It would fail massively.
But surely it's the more important side of feminism, that, because, I mean, personally, I disagree. I think the academic is playing a factor in all those.
Of course it does.
But surely to God, it's more important the political and real world feminism, because that's the one that's the thing that's affecting people.
Yeah, but I think academic feminism will be the thing that affects then political discourse. Like I say, if you're believing in the synecdoche model like I do, then it's the kind of thing that is just going to happen. For example, with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that was a huge turning point in terms of female characters, in terms of even the genre itself. Like my personal experience with feminism is it's kind of shaped me and it made me a mature person. Before I was a feminist, I was an arsehole. I was an absolute arsehole. Like, I was one of those people that I thought because I rejected femininity in such a way, and feminism taught me to embrace femininity. Like, I saw it as like
femininity that would make you an asshole.
Because I thought I was better than girls who were feminine by virtue of the fact that I was not as feminine as them.
You mean you're a typical teenager?
Yeah, but one of those things where it sort of pulled me out of my own head and my what do you call it, superiority complex. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer was one of the first things to do that, because yeah, she was a girly girl, she was a cheerleader, and then Buffy fucking Summers would then go to the cemetery at night and kill vampires.
Yes, but actually, I would probably describe that era as coming to the end of the second wave feminism. Actually, that's just personal opinion. But isn't it interesting that, like, in this day and age, not even Joss Whedon's feminist enough for the mainstream movement?
I know. There is nothing that pissed me off more than feminists getting mad at Joss Whedon for the Hulk and Black Widow fiasco, which wasn't that big of a fucking deal. And they got really pissed off that she thought of herself as a monster because she couldn't have children. And they were like, how dare you, Joss Whedon?
Well, it was more to do with the fact she chose death over life.
That was the point that I told you. Don't steal my words. Don't steal my point so I look like an idiot and you look like a genius. This is my point.
Why do you think?
This is my point, because she gave up the ability to have children to become a killer. This is what they're forgetting. They're like, how dare you, Joss Whedon, being infertile doesn't make you a monster. And it's like, that is so 100% not what he's saying.
So do you think feminism is doing good as of right now, though?
I think it's trying.
You think it's trying?
Like I said, I think there are still positive people in the movement. Like, for example, in terms of like second wave feminism,
that wasn't the question. If there's those people are
I'm saying those people are still here.
Yes,
they're still trying to do good.
But the question wasn't. I mean, like, what effect is it having in the real world that would be considered positive in the West?
Well, in terms of
because surely the idea of feminism is an outdated concept in and as itself, because it implies that women aren't equal to men. Whereas in many cases,
not quite. I don't think that implication is there.
Yeah. Well, it's the advocation of equality based on women's rights.
Well,
So,
I'm
that
looking at it.
implies that women don't have equal rights. In many cases, they've got more rights, and in many cases, those rights that have been gained are because of feminism.
Yeah, but also there are rights that have been gained for men because of feminism. It was feminists who pushed for the change of law on what the definition of rape means.
Yes, and now you've got the whole thing of the listen and believe attitude, where if someone cries rape, we're meant to just believe it. We've also got feminists pushing this idea that only men can be rapists with this, don't teach our daughters not to be raped.
Absolutely not. I think that is ridiculous. And I think, like I say, in terms of the feminists that I know personally, I don't spend a lot of time debating feminism online. I don't like online movements. I think people are pathetic and wild, and they, like I say, they go way too far. I mean, the problem with using the internet as that kind of platform is that you can get any idiot with a microphone or a camera, and they can just spew their opinion to it.
Yeah, but these people have 3-4 million followers, and there's this whole idea that the internet and the real world are two very separate things, but they're interchanging, they're overlapping things. So some things. So it's exactly what you were saying about how history affects literature and literature affects history. It's the same thing with the internet and the real world. The real world affects the internet, and the internet affects the real world. I'm
not denying that. So, I never said anything to the contrary.
So surely you can, there's a problem in feminism.
Oh, there is a huge toxic part of feminism. I'm not going to pretend there aren't times where I just question everything, but I feel like I have to stick with it because of my feminist principles, and I think the only people who are going to change feminism are feminists. I think we need feminists who are skeptical, and we need feminists who are aware.
But these people get shut down. Christine Hoff Sommers, she's banned from most fucking universities in America because she doesn't preach the feminism that people like.
Maybe I am too optimistic, but I can dream that someday feminists like me will get taken seriously.
I'll never take you seriously. Don't worry about give up on that dream, man.
Thanks, mate. Cheers a fucking bunch.
Right. So what I think I'll do now is I will play the video that I had prepared for you. I spent all of yesterday or the day before editing it. And
I feel so loved.
It has a few of my favourite feminist moments in it.
Oh god, I'm gonna vomit, aren't I?
Bitch, what you want?
Yeah, so they did grab me and pull me in and try to punch me. They're the person right over there with the black lipstick.
That's assault right there.
Officer, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything that happened.
There's no reason to be
I didn't see anything. Nothing happened.
And these so-called men's rights groups are actually hate groups.
No hate speech on no violence.
Very frustrated. I was studying all today, and I took time out of my studies to come here.
Would you like to ask him why he's here?
I'm not sufficiently convinced that I'll receive an answer that isn't what I presented.
2 of my friends committed suicide, and I want the peace of understanding why that happened.
Because, of course, not only do we have International Women's Day, we also have women and equality questions every month in the Chamber, which we don't have for men. So the opportunity for men to raise issues that are important to them is very limited. And just to give you a flavour, Mr. Chairman, of the type of things that may come up and which will be part of International Men's Day, I'm not entirely sure why it's so humorous, but to discuss issues such as men's shorter life expectancy, wider male health issues, many of which go unreported through embarrassment of men to sort of go along and talk about these things, the high suicide rate amongst men, the...
Did you expect to get some addressing of suicide issue at the talk here?
Yes, I did. I think everybody's voice should be heard. I wondered why the security was trying to keep me back, and I think it's for my own safety.
So you believe it's hate speech, right?
It is hate speech.
I've never heard him before. I don't even know what he's talking. I've
Okay,
never heard of them before.
We invite you to educate
I just
yourself.
so I just wanted to listen to
Go on
him.
Google.
I just wanted to see who this guy is
There's
and what he's talking about. But now I can't get in.
You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. You're fucking scum. You are fucking scum.
Important to recognize that harassment is, as someone had mentioned, it's not just what is legal and illegal, right? Harassment is threats of violence, but it's also the day-to-day grind of you're a liar, you suck, you know, making all of these hate videos to attack us on a regular basis, and the mobs that come from those hate videos, etc.
All around the world, women are still getting paid less than men.
I got paid what?
Well, it's actually quite simple, I think. We introduce a pay gap tax. The pay gap tax is a tax that's paid to all the women in your company. Woohoo! By looking at the average amount that a man gets paid and the average amount that the woman gets paid, and that difference is paid to all the women in the company, regardless of performance, regardless of position.
So, what do you think of that video?
I really hope you did not bring me here with the intention of me defending that.
I just with the intention of hearing what you have to say about it.
God, I mean,
the intention of this video is basically to turn you into an anti-feminist.
That's not one of those things that's going to happen. It's one of those things where it's too embedded in my principles, I think. I mean,
hang on. Did you just basically admit to being indoctrinated?
No, how on earth was that even close?
It's too embedded into my principles. It's like you can't unlearn it. It's like indoctrination. No. Anyway, carry on. Carry on.
I can't even remember because you made up some bullshit. Now I can't remember where I was going.
No, with the video.
Sorry, the video.
I mean, like I say, these are the real life things that are happening.
I mean, it's some of them. It's some of them.
Well, what other things? What good things is feminism doing?
Well, I'm going to sort of quote amazing atheists and some things. Like he said that feminism is only really doing anything in the West. He said it's not really doing anything anywhere else, which I think is I agree with him on most points, but I think that's a bit of bollocks. I mean, look at Malala. Look at everything that she has done for feminism in her country.
Is she necessarily a feminist though? Because does she identify as a feminist?
Have you not seen the interview with her and Emma Watson?
No. Did she actually say she's a feminist in that then?
I think it was heavily implied. I could be very wrong.
Because that's
she
the
might
thing.
not. She might not identify as a feminist.
Because otherwise, I don't want to call her a feminist if she doesn't identify as a feminist. Because to say, I believe in equality, and I hate it when I get told, "Oh, you believe in equality, you're a feminist." I fucking hate that.
No,
so
that's
I don't
really
want to do that
stupid non-argument because it's like. I feel like I should point this out now. If you are a feminist and you are offended when other people are not feminists, then get the fuck out. Not being feminist does not make a person anti-woman. Chill out. Chill out.
As well, what are your thoughts on the history of feminism and the actual history of women's rights advocacy before the term feminism was coined, which I believe was about 1880 when it was actually coined.
You're questioning my history now.
But I know my
historical knowledge.
I often find that again, this is a topic that a lot of people are quite ignorant about. I do praise the first and second wave feminism. I think for the most part they were brilliant, but they do have some very dark sides to it as well.
Oh yeah, there is some really bad things. I mean, if you've ever read any Mary Wollstonecraft, her ideal of feminism was that, to be fair, like in other respects she was a very good feminist, but then there are other respects in which she thought if you adopted the traditional female roles, that made you weak. Made you less not a feminist, because you weren't doing things that were masculine, essentially.
So, what do you actually? What's your thoughts then? Since we're talking about you talked about gender roles, on the idea of patriarchy.
What do you mean? Like expand what you're asking me. Like you're asking me if I believe in patriarchy.
Yeah. Do you basically? What does patriarchy mean to you? And sorry, what does patriarchy mean to you? And like, do you think it's relevant today? Do you think it's always been relevant? Like,
I think it's something we should always question. Whether the reality of it is there is, you know, that's debatable. But in terms of
so you think
like
it's
you
worth
did
debating the
that
principle?
thing, yeah, you did that thing where you threw the dictionary definition at me, like feminists do with you.
Yes,
and
but,
it turns out that patriarchy is what male domination without, but was also at the same time pushing women out, essentially, like not giving them an equal voice. And I do
I'll
think
put the definition on the screen. I will.
Yeah, I mean, I do think women do have equal right and chance in terms of being able to get to top of like those fields, but then like most industries in the world, the leading people in those industries are all male, and we have a huge male populace in our government.
But in an open society, though, we're not gonna get gender parity, though. Otherwise you're looking for equal outcome, not equal opportunity.
Oh no, I'm not
and
saying
that's when you get fascism.
No, I'm not saying that we should do that thing where it's like, okay, we should have 50% men and we should have 50% women.
But in some countries, this is actually happening.
Oh no, Justin Trudeau has done it. In
Sweden, and there's another Canadian guy.
Yeah, the Canadian Prime Minister.
The Pope, he's a fucking twat. But
yeah,
but
one of my favourite celebrities hates him as well, and he's Canadian.
But in Sweden, if the board of CEOs don't have 40% women on board, they get fined. So women are going to get hired now purely based on the fact that they're a woman.
Yeah, that's positive discrimination. Positive, but it's still discrimination. I don't want to be hired because I'm female. I don't want to say, then potential employers to look at me and be like, look, to be honest, this other guy's great, but we don't have anyone with tits on our team, so let's hire her. I think that's a huge way to sort of it's an ignorance of my work and my own sense of personal achievement. It completely throws into question that anywhere I get in life, I'll be like, do I have it because of this privilege now?
Well, I mean, as you just said, you've got privilege, so what need is there for feminism then in the West?
Because I think that if feminism is the thing that's like throwing these questions out there, for example, like, I don't think that we should be trying to fill quotas, but at the same time, in terms of patriarchy, we should be questioning why the leads of all these industries are still male. And I'm not saying we should therefore, like I say, try to hire women to balance that out, but more question the whys, because that's not what we're doing here. Like that's even in our criticism of feminism.
But some of these things that patriarchy is blamed for, feminism is the root cause of it. For it, or gender, women's rights act. Well, for example, this idea of women being better caregivers, and that's why they win the custody battles, being a patriarchy thing, is complete bollocks. It's a women's activist thing. It was in the 1830s, so before the term feminism was coined, where a woman's activist took some guy's husband, took her ex-husband to court over custody of her children, got a massive campaign, and managed to change the entire law so women basically always got child custody. But up until then, it was the male who got given custody. So so the child rearing aspect, which patriarchy gets blamed for, has nothing to do with patriarchy. It's got everything to do with women's activism.
I mean, I guess we've got to really if women's activism that started, but then got to maintain the question of why is it still alive. And I'm not going to. I'm not sitting here. I'm not sitting here and blaming. I'm not blaming patriarchy. I'm not saying I'm not going to sit here and blame patriarchy. I'm not.
You're not a very good feminist.
No, but I'm a good person who just happens to be one.
A deluded person.
A deluded person. Thanks, mate.
You're welcome.
Again, I had a point and I lost it. But it's one of those things where, in the video, the guy in Parliament was talking about men's health issues that they feel too embarrassed to talk about. And another one of those things that's also questionable, along with patriarchy, is, you guessed it, toxic masculinity. Do you think masculinity has anything to do with why men are embarrassed about certain things that women are not?
Because you've got to remember, men, most of these things that toxic masculinity gets blamed for, like mental health problems and all that type of thing, can be explained in other ways. For example, obviously, the majority of people who suffer from these issues don't have a strong male role model. They're raised by single mums. So the problem is lack of masculinity. there's an imbalance of gender in the psychologists, when it's been shown that having more men in those fields would benefit both genders, but particularly men. Also, there's less male role models in schools because the majority of teachers are female. So again, although I'm not advocating for, we need to hire men just to make things even, because that's bollocks, but that is an explanation.
I mean, you
the
don't
lack
think
of masculinity can explain this. These things that toxic masculinity gets blamed for.
Yeah, but you don't think there's any kind of narrative, you know, that sort of big boys don't cry narrative. That I don't, like I say, I'm not gonna. I don't know any of these.
Have you not been told, big girls don't cry now?
No, like I say,
I
have been.
Both genders get told that.
Yeah,
it's just a way to get a kid to be quiet.
I'm just wondering what it is that causes this thing where people think that somehow it is less masculine to do things like certain things are associated with feminine. So
because
it's
feminine.
Like,
you just stated it. You just stated it.
What did I just state? There are certain things that are associated with being feminine. So, for example, like showing emotion, for like crying a lot. Like, why is that associated with being a feminine thing?
Because men are more taught, and it's been proven to. Sorry, your phone went off and distracted me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll tell it to back up.
Where was I? Oh yeah, right. But it's been proven that men that like to solve their personal issues, like a task to be solved, like a problem to be overcome, crying's not going to accomplish that.
No, I know crying doesn't solve problems, but it does help getting emotions out does help. Like,
it's been proven men like tackling their problems in a different way, and we do express our emotion, just not the same way that most females do.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's nothing wrong with a man expressing emotion in a traditionally more feminine way, but we shouldn't be throwing this masculine idea.
No, but that's the problem. That's the problem right there when you say traditionally more feminine way. The way that we look at that as being traditionally more feminine.
Why can't it just be a case of but we can accept someone if they want to be feminine?
Because it means regarding femininity as a weak trait.
But it's not seen as a weak trait, though.
Well, I don't know. If you're talking about like this, but if you're talking about this unhelpful idea of don't cry about it because that's not going to fix it, and then looking at that and then saying that's a traditionally feminine behaviour, that is a weak behaviour, and it's associated with femininity.
But you're the one saying it's weak, though. I haven't said it's weak. I've merely stated that as a different way of tackling the problem.
No, you've said that crying's not going to solve a problem. Like, just
yeah,
sitting there
crying.
No, exactly.
That's
what I mean.
Fact.
I know it's fact, but then it's also associated with being a feminine behaviour, and it's that's a negative thing.
No, it's not.
You're the one saying it. You're the one saying it.
No, I haven't said it's negative. I haven't said it's a negative thing. I've merely stated something which you agree to. The fact that. And there's been tests to show this, that men prefer to tackle their problems.
That's not what I'm.
No, hang on, let me finish. That men prefer to tackle their problems as a challenge as a way. Men prefer to express rather than express emotion, cry, to tackle their problems like a problem to be solved. So they don't tend to cry because that doesn't help them solve the problem. That does not imply that crying is negative or weakness. All it does is say that it's not really useful, especially for the way men traditionally express emotion.
Oh, it's just not useful in terms of men, just not generally, not useful.
Well, in the traditional way that men like to solve their problems, no, it's not that useful.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, we do have to be careful in terms of, do you think there are people that see feminine traits as weak?
Yeah, but there's probably people who see masculine traits as weak.
What masculine traits are we...
Toxic masculinity is basically that.
No, the idea of... that's not, though, because they're not regarding that as weakness.
But they're seen as negative.
Oh, I guess that's true. It is being seen as negative, but it's one of those things, it's only seen as negative when it has a negative effect.
And the thing is,
so if they're trying to avoid femininity, which they view as negative, that masculinity then becomes negative, if you understand me. If they're trying too hard to be masculine... because they see the feminine traits as weakness. That's what it is meant by toxic masculinity. It doesn't mean toxic masculinity is to blame for all men's problems. It just means that if masculinity can be toxic if you are a guy and you're thinking, I must be a man about this, and not embracing, you know, when you do need to cry, or when you do have, like, you know, one of those breakdown, because everyone has a breakdown at some point in their life. You know, you're not going to go through your life without it.
Yes,
masculinity.
But men aren't actually being told they're not allowed to cry.
No, I'm
It's
not
just
saying
an,
men.
it's an
No, I'm not
explanation
saying
to
men.
men
I'm
not
not
crying
saying.
as often.
No, I'm not saying men are like being told that. I'm saying masculinity becomes toxic when you know, you put it forth as like a kind of persona, I guess, in terms of. I've very much lost where I was going with this.
I mean, you basically just seem to be explaining a twat. But that's not gender specific. That, I mean, otherwise you could apply.
At what point did I say that?
I know you didn't,
specific?
but like, but surely if you can apply it, then you say, oh, the toxic femininity. Surely then that whole concept is complete bullshit then, because it's just the people being horrible.
Be, you know, like,
it's just the person being horrible. It doesn't affect anyone else's idea of masculinity or femininity. It's just that one person who's being a twat.
No, exactly, but that means their own masculinity can then be toxic if they're using masculinity as a reason to not show what they view as femininity, even if it's something that they need.
But saying the idea of toxic masculinity, I mean, if you're applying it at a personal basis, it seems like a pointless term.
Why? Why does it seem like?
Because what use is it? What use does it solve? If like, oh, that guy's a male, he's a twat. Oh, toxic masculinity.
No, that's not what it is at all. Like, are you listening to what I'm saying? Are you saying how masculinity can be toxic in terms of some people's personal behaviour?
Yeah, so
that is what is meant, or at least for me, that's what I see as toxic masculinity. So if I think someone's like, you know, trying too hard to be manly about an issue they don't need to be manly about, and I'm like, you know, I'm not going to say, hey, man, don't let your masculinity get toxic, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's exactly my point, though. I say, so you're putting it down to the individual, not a wider society, wider concept problem. It's not. You're saying it's like the individual who might have a toxic idea of masculinity.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think.
So what's the use of the term?
I don't think toxic masculinity is something that's sort of like forced upon as a society role. I don't think that they're, but again, I don't know. It's just a term that exists. I think you're reading too hard into it.
But when it's getting blamed for all the shit that feminism blames it for, I mean, you have to challenge these ideas and take them to the extremes to prove how ridiculous they are.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like I say, it's one of those things where I don't think like feminists should be blaming everything on like stupid, nonsensical terminology.
Yeah. So
I had another point.
You don't think everything's the patriarchy is to blame for everything?
No, that's fucking stupid. Okay. Where's the sense of nuance in thinking the patriarchy is oppressing me because I can't do this? It's like, you know, maybe love, you're a bit shit. It's not the patriarchy's fault. It's like one of those things. Like, have you ever seen...
really not a good feminist.
No, I'm a really, really bad one. But have you ever seen Doc Brown? Actually, he's a comedian.
Oh, he's the rapper, isn't he? The T-rap. Yeah.
Have you seen his racist one? Where he's just like, just blame racism for everything. He's like, raining, fuck the clouds, the whole sky is racist. Yeah, that's the kind of idea of patriarchy, of what it's come to. It's like, I'm a woman and I can't reach the top of my field. I guess it must be patriarchy and not because someone else is better than me.
I'm going to ask you a challenging question now.
Oh, fuck.
That is probably going to make you slightly uncomfortable. But
it probably will. Probably trying to make me leave my feminism in the dirt.
No, do you think there's a problem with feminism when it comes to calling out Islam?
Oh, your battery's running low.
Yep.
Yeah. I think there is a bit of an issue because we try too hard to be PC. We try too hard to say, no, look, because the idea, like, feminism in its idea is that it should be, like, inclusive of everyone. And, like, we're going to try, you know, include, like, you know, all of Islam.
Well,
I'm not going to say, you know, that, like, there are
intersectionalism, but that's the thing that's killing the fucking movement, in my opinion.
No, I don't think intersectional should be regarded as like a bad word. Like the reason like
it's not the word
feminism,
that's bad. It's the actions.
No, it's one of those things where that's why feminism moved on from second waves because of lack of intersectionality. And I don't think intersectionality is a bad thing. I mean, it can be taken, it can be used in a bad way to, like I say, to try to justify bad behaviours in Islam, but defending it because we can't be xenophobic. that's not what intersectionality
Well, but
like,
even outside feminism is having a problem. I don't know if you've heard about the Rotherham case.
The Rotherham case, what's that? Go on.
Over the course of 10 years, 1,400 young girls were raped by a Muslim sex gang, I believe, from Pakistan. One of the reasons the police didn't go in and charge is because they were too afraid of being called Islamophobic. I mean, that's sort of a problem created by the left and the PC culture in general. But we don't hear feminism calling them out. We don't hear feminism calling... I mean, feminism actively defends Islam in
but I wouldn't
in Germany, when there's been 36 beheadings of women, the crime rates are through the roof. And there was a case, I think she was German anyway, a journalist who was talking about the sexual harassment and assaults that have been going on in Germany by these refugees, and she gets shut down for speaking. I mean, where the fuck are feminism on that?
I mean, I completely agree with you. These are cases I'm going to point out, like, I had no idea it even happened. And I'm going to do that feminist thing, and I'm going to call it out right now. That's fucking bollocks.
Yeah, but doesn't that say a lot? That, I mean, like, those big stories...
It does. It does say a lot.
Don't get shared by feminists, but yet the Great British Bake Off having pink icing gets shared all across.
Yeah, I think that is bizarre. The fact that we nitpick. And to be fair, I think it's that British Bake Off thing is kind of a fair criticism in terms of not, oh my god, you're terrible, you're wrong, but rather question, why the fuck are you gendering icing? Like, what the fuck are you doing? That's just, it's just stupid, and I think that's
doesn't matter. I mean, it's for the look, it's for the aesthetic. It looks good, it looks appealing. So
yeah, but
that's
it's like
doing it.
No, it's this idea of like women has pink icing, man has blue icing. It's just.
But what was wrong with that? What is necessarily wrong with that anyway? Like.
Because I don't think we should be pushing gender roles on people, and that's my own personal belief, and I think that's a fair thing to be discussed. But the fact that kind of post goes viral,
but this
and
is feminism is trying to push gender roles, though.
Feminism is trying to push gender roles.
These safe schools, I mean, we don't particularly have them in Britain, but these safe schools in Australia and America, I think it's Australia anyway. They're teaching like kids in kindergarten penis tucking and like the bra strap thing. I'm genuinely being serious. This actually happens.
That's fucking mad.
And like they're teaching that these non-binary genders are actually real things. Not even like it's just a concept of expression. They're teaching them that these are real fucking genders biologically.
Yeah, no, I think that's ridiculous.
I mean, they are trying to push gender roles. I mean, their solution seems to be to like, transgender people are excluded for society. Let's make everyone fucking trans.
No, I think the idea of what's good about like not trying to push gender roles, the reason I don't think gender roles should be pushed, because I think it can have an impact on how you view yourself. For example, gender roles for me made me reject femininity for a long time because I saw it as an inherently bad thing, and I think actually my introduction to feminism and therefore the embracing my femininity kind of led to me embracing my bisexuality also.
But surely to God though, you have to accept that some of these gender roles are there because of biology. I mean, I'm not saying as humans we are smart enough to look past that biology, but you have to acknowledge that it's there. That's why men and women have different brain structures. There's women have estrogen, men have... Fuck me, I've lost the word. Testosterone, that's the word. So, obviously, as well, just the way our bodies are built is going to put us naturally to go in towards different things.
I mean, I think you can argue that to an extent. I think it's a bit of a wobbly point. But
I'm not saying it's all down to biology 100%, but I'm saying you've got to acknowledge that biology plays a part and it's not just socially constructed, which is what feminism seems to be pushing.
I mean, I don't know. I'm a little bit critical of how you want to sort of like lump all of feminism as like all of feminism is doing this thing when there, not all of feminism is doing that thing. There is a strange, weird like group that seems to have the mainstream spokespiece for feminism,
And
which
it's the one
which I
having the
cannot
effects.
stand, which I cannot stand because as a feminist, it causes me so much tension and so much crisis, and it's like I don't know whether it's worth being a feminist anymore.
Well,
sometimes, just because like the fact that the thing that these feminists are doing to the rest of the movement is slowly killing it. It's pushing people out. It makes me it hurts me on such a level because it's like it's so hard to try to have to defend why I'm a feminist to all the fucking time, and then when people ask me deep questions and I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, I don't even know anymore.
Right. Well, so I've got because actually I made a quick video clip for you. Have you got anything you want to show?
I mean, not any videos or anything like that. I was just going to discuss like certain articles. Like, for example, there was an article in 2015 about the.
I'll try and get them up on the screen.
Yeah, you'll probably be able to find it on BBC. It was about the premiere of the suffragette movie. It was something that Helena Bonham Carter was in, and there was a huge feminist protest there.
That's Beatrix Lestrange, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and there was a really big protest there, and like to a certain point, like that. I mean, I think they went a bit far.
Protest? Why were they protesting?
It was essentially because there had been a lot of budget cuts to domestic health services, not violence services, so all like social security all cut, and it was one that so they basically knew that they would get visibility at a suffragette movie, and it was pretty much like what it should have been is standing there and showing their point and being like, hey, while you're paying attention to this women's rights film, also look at
that's
really happening.
hypocritical by the feminist movement because they actively try and shut down MRA shelters despite the fact that the domestic statistics between men and women are virtually the same.
That they made it look
the
like...
case of Earl Silverman tried to set up his own shelter, tried to get funding for it, got shut down by feminists, got harassed and bullied until he committed suicide by feminists, and no mainstream media covered this.
See, I don't think it's necessarily hypocritical feminist just because some feminists are doing it that
but it's
way.
Hypocritical of the movement overall.
No, but then the movement doesn't. When we don't all cohere on the same beliefs, you can't say it's hypocritical of the movement.
Yeah, but we don't. We never hear any feminists calling this bullshit out though.
Or maybe because that's not in the mainstream. I mean, I do think the problem with the protests was that
I follow a lot of like there are feminists even on YouTube who admit to agreeing with feminists in public just to save face. They actively admit to not calling feminism out on this bullshit.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that's
surely that's the problem. I mean, when Christina Hoff Sommers does it.
She gets shut down.
She gets shut down.
Yeah, it's utterly ridiculous that these are the people we're looking at and being like, okay, guys, we could be careful not to offend people because certain feminists are really going to get pissed off at us. And that's what's irritating.
Right.
It's policing thought and creativity so fucking much.
Okay, right. So, because this video is probably around about 45 minutes long now, we're gonna wrap this up. So, do you want to ask the question you have prepared for me?
I mean, my question was pretty much the reverse of your question in terms of all the positive things that have been done by feminists and feminism. Why are you allowing that this movement right now that's occurred in the last few years to completely spoil feminism for you?
One, because feminism has always done a lot of negative things, and not just stuff that's specific to its time, stuff that is uniquely evil of what feminism has done. Secondly, because identifying as a feminist in the West would imply that women do not have equal rights.
I don't think that's true whatsoever.
I'm answering the question. To me, it would imply that women don't have equal rights when they do. Egalitarianism is a much better word because it's not just it doesn't focus on any.
But what does egalitarianism do as a movement? Like it's just kind of
it's
there
as a
word.
It's
kind of there to be as a word to be thrown at something if you don't want to call yourself a feminist.
What's wrong with that though? I mean, Amazing Atheist probably consider themselves egalitarian. He certainly doesn't consider a feminist.
Good God.
He's done more. He's done more for fucking feminist women's charities than fucking Anita Sarkeesian, who's a feminist. So what's wrong with the term egalitarian?
I never said there was anything wrong with the term egalitarian. As I'm saying, it exists solely as a term. Maybe that's where feminism can actually be pushed forward in terms of like actually having an egalitarian movement.
But there are charities that, you know, are egalitarian and humanitarian. These charities are out there.
Yeah, maybe they need to be given.
Most of these charities, when it's like giving water to like poor African countries, that's an egalitarian.
I mean, do they call themselves egalitarian? I guess.
Well,
it's the same question that you applied to me, saying, "Is that feminism though? Is that is she a feminist? Is that person a feminist?"
Have you gone on their websites? Yeah, certainly.
And in terms of like equal rights, maybe by law, but then there are things like in America of there being like I don't know, like I mean, I'm not really wanting to quote Lacey Green, to be completely fucking honest with you, but so I have not fact checked her on this whole 700 laws that exist to police women's bodies and there being absolutely zero to police men's, as there very well fucking should be. But there might, you know, I think there are some.
Well, you
things.
say that, but what about male genital mutilation? There's no law.
In terms of circumcision, you mean? Or
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's an entirely different argument.
But
I don't agree with circumcision.
Some of the arguments Lacey Green brings up, I mean, like, for the fact that there are some states, we are going to have to wrap this up, so I'm going to answer this quickly. But some states, obviously, don't allow women to get abortion. But that's, in reality, it hasn't got anything to do with controlling woman's body. That's the effect it's having. That's just the effect it's having. What it's in reality about is deciding when life becomes life.
But
and that's equality, though. If like the woman not being able to get rid of a child is equality. It's not a nice version of equality. What should happen is the woman should have the right to abortion, and the male should have the right to a financial abortion. That would be a better form of equality. But that is equality, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think like in terms of like abortion law, people need to remember that this isn't something that just affects women. It also affects men. You know, men also get abortions. You know, like when an abortion happens, it's not. Yes, it's happening in the woman's body, but it's only half her baby.
Either way, women can have more power over that, even with the male getting their financial abortion, because at the end of the day, the woman's got the power to get rid of the baby. The man's only got the power to leave.
Oh, I know. Did you hear that? Did you hear that story about that 17-year-old boy who was raped by his babysitter, female, and then she got pregnant, and then she took it to court, and then he had to pay child support.
Yeah. I mean, it's a loophole that works both ways. That one. Right. Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up here. A bit of an abrupt end. There we go.
Sorry for being a shit feminist. I'm
Say,
sure you'd much rather talk to someone more extreme and stupid than me.
Right. Well, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please share, like, and subscribe, and I shall see you next time.